Hey, what's up guys? I was a bit sick, so kinda late upload, but welcome back. If you enjoyed the last build guide on rapid fire, you will absolutely love this setup. Today we're going to be going over the pen shot rapid fire dual core build for tier 100s. This build flies through dungeons, and comparing it to the previous rapid fire build, it has much better clear, a lot more tanky, but it does take a tiny hit on boss damage. Overall, I enjoy playing the setup much more, and it destroys all content. As normal, in this video, we'll be going over the skills, skill tree, gear, Vampiric Powers, and the Paragon Boards. Before we get into the guide, I want to thank you guys for 2,000 subs and all the support I've been getting on these guides. Sub goal for November is 3K. If we hit that, I'll be doing some platinum giveaways in the Discord, so like, sub, and share. I appreciate all of your support. First, we'll go over the dungeon setup, and then we'll move on to the bossing setup as normal. Starting off with the skills, we're using Cold Imbue, Dash, Pen Shot, Shadow Imbue, Rapid Fire, and Puncture with the specialization combo points. If you were playing the Rapid Fire build, you might have noticed one big thing, that being those damage suppress aura mobs. If you got one of them with a suppressor elite, it was a huge pain to deal with them. So we're going to be using Pen Shot to clear the dungeon and Rapid Fire for the dungeon boss. With this setup, Pen Shot can crit up to 4 mil, deleting everything off your screen, so clearing dungeons is a piece of cake. We're using Cold and Shadow Imbue for the damage bonuses we get from the skill tree and Paragon Boards. I just alternate between them when I'm running the dungeons. And you don't need to be as careful with your positioning as you did with the rapid fire build. Since we are a lot more tanky, diving packs is a lot more forgiving, so you can get away with being a bit careless. And time for the skill tree. Starting off, we're going 1 point into Puncture with Fundamental Puncture, maxing out Rapid Fire, picking up Advanced Rapid Fire for that critical strike damage bonus after evading, 3 into Stutter Step, maxing out Pen Shot and picking up Improved Pen Shot for an increased critical strike chance after hitting at least 3 enemies, 3 into Weapon Mastery, Dash with Methodical Dash just so we can get that up more often, Dark Shroud with Subverting Dark Shroud for some movement speed to get through dungeons faster, 3 into Exploit, 3 into Malice, 1 point into Shadow Imbue, picking up Mixed Shadow Imbue for that 12% increased non-physical damage, 3 into Precision Imbuement, 1 point into Cold Imbue, picking up Mixed Cold Imbuement for increased damage against crowd control, 3 into Frigid Finesse, 3 into Innervation, 3 into Alchemist Fortune, 1 into Adrenaline Rush, 3 into Haste, and finally picking up Victimize. Next, we have the gear. Before we get into the gear and aspects, this build is using 2 Uber uniques. However, there will be a non-Uber version and a D4Builds setup in the description, so you can follow that while you grind these uniques if you don't have them. And at the end of the video, I will have a clip of showing all of my in-game stats. Starting off with the helmet, I went with Andriel's Visage. Andy's is awesome as it gives us some attack speed, lifesteal, and covers all of our poison res. As Range Rogue doesn't really have the best sustain, you heal the max life almost instantly with the lifesteal. The unique effect allowing for us to poison enemies is also a plus, as it does do a decent amount of poison damage. For the chestplate, go for armor percent followed by 3 resistant rolls with the aspect Umbros. Since all of our attacks are marksman attacks and Pen Shot has a super high base lucky hit chance, we have all of our Dark Shrouds up most of the time, giving us 40% damage reduction. For the gloves, you want to get ranks to Pen Shot, ranks to Rapid Fire, crit chance, and lucky hit chance with the aspect Edge Masters. We do have our energy up most of the time, so it's just a good damage bonus. And for the pants, we're going with the lovely Tybalt's Will. The unique effect is a nice bonus, giving up to 40% multi while unstoppable and for 4 seconds after. And we proc this a lot, so the damage bonus is up most of the time. But the main reason is the bug with the primary resource, which adds to our combo points, giving up to an extra 20 combo points, which scales our damage for each point, leading to insane damage output. And for the boots, we're going with Penitent Griefs. This makes it super easy to apply chill to anything close to us, allowing for us to get our crowd control bonuses more often. They also cover our cold res, and a 10% multi to chilled enemies is always a plus. Next up, we have the weapons. For the two-hand, I went with the legendary bow with the stat rolls Dex, all stat, vulnerable damage, and critical damage with the aspect Rapid. The reason for putting Rapid here is it makes the build feel so much more fluid. Alternating between Puncture and Pen Shot feels super smooth and gets those combo points up super fast. I want to quickly mention the unique bows. Eagle Horn is fun to play with as it bounces around, so if you're doing like Hell Tides or doing some lower tier dungeons and don't need the extra damage, I would definitely go with it. But all the unique bows lack having both all stat and dex, which is a huge damage loss. So overall, most of the time, it is better to go with Legendary Bow if you have it with those stats. If not, go ahead and use one of the unique bows for now. For our melee weapons, we'll be using Condemnation and Doombringer. Condemnation is a must, maxing out our 20 plus combo points and giving a damage multi on having them maxed. As for Doombringer, this makes us an absolute tank, giving so much life and applying a damage reduction on mobs on its lucky hit effect, and since Penshot has so much lucky hit at base, this gets procced pretty often. And lastly, the jewelry. For the amulet, get one with dex percent, armor percent, ranks 2 weapon mastery, and the last roll either go for movement speed or cooldown reduction with aspect disobedience. For the rings, on both of them you want to get crit chance, lucky hit chance, vulnerable damage, and life with the aspects trick shot and expectant. And to wrap up gear, for the gem sockets you want to get rubies for your armor, emeralds for your weapons, and for your jewelry balance out your resistances here. Next up, this season mechanic, the Vampiric Powers. Pick up Metamorphosis for the unstoppable it gives after evading, bring on the Weak for some more damage against vulnerable, Ravenous for an insane attack speed boost, and lastly you want to get Resilience and Undying, giving us a lot more damage reduction and life sustain. Even though we do have Andreals for lifesteal, if you do run a dungeon with spiders or any poison mobs, they stack so much poison on you that you'll end up killing all the mobs but die to the poison after, as there isn't anything to lifesteal off. So this just helps to make sure we don't die to that. And lastly, we have the Paragon Boards. So starting with the board order, we go from the starting board to Cunning Stratagem, to Exploit Weakness board, up to the No Witnesses board, to the right, the Tricks of the Trade board, and finally down to the Cheap Shot board. As for the glyphs, we're picking up Ranger, Exploit, Combat, Infusion, Chip, and finally Control. As for the legendary nodes we pick up, we're going to get Exploit Weakness and Cheap Shot. And that quickly just summarizes the Paragon boards. If you are wanting to follow this more in depth, I will have the link to the D4Builds where you can see all this, the gear and skill tree more closely. Now that we've gone over the dungeon version of the build, move on to the bossing setup. This setup is to max out our single target damage without changing that much. I wanted to have an easy swap so I could get through bossing sessions faster, so I wouldn't have to really change that much about the build or spend too much gold respecking. Now this setup will be super similar to the rapid fire bossing setup with just a few improvements. Starting off with the skill changes, first we'll be swapping Cold Imbue out for Shadow Clone, and Penshot you can either swap it out for Caltrops to give a crit chance boost and increase damage to enemies that are inside the Caltrops, or if you are wanting to use the Concealment trick to get that guaranteed overpower crit, go for that. Now for the gear swaps. Swap out the gloves for Grasp of Shadows, giving +6 to your core skills, some attack speed, and the unique effect of having a chance to summon a Shadow Clone to mimic your attack. And if your main attack procs Victimize, so will the Shadow Clones. The boots, swap them out for Flicker Step, allowing you to evade more often, extra damage to your Shadow Clone ult, and reducing the cooldown of your Shadow Clone whenever you evade through an enemy. Then for the amulet, we'll swap it to Banished Lord's Talisman, giving crit chance, ranks to our core skills, and the unique effect of a guaranteed overpower on your core skill after spending 300 energy, and up to a 120% multi on your overpower crits. And the last gear changes, swap out Doombringer for a sword or dagger with all stat, dex, vulnerable damage, and critical damage with Edge Masters. Or if you have the unique Ashiras, you can just use that and it'll be fine. And just to quickly go over the Paragon board changes, there aren't that many. You could optimize this a lot more, but as I said earlier, I didn't want to have to spend a bunch of gold and change a bunch of things to go do bosses. So the first change is just swapping Control out for Canny. They both share the requirements of Intelligence, so that's just an easy swap. Then we just unspec from Cheap Shot and then come over here and we pick up the rare and magic nodes here. And then you should have just 1 point extra, and I just went ahead and put that into the core skill damage. And that just quickly sums this up. And that sums up this build guide on the Penshot rapid fire build for tier 100s and bossing. Links to all three setups will be in the description below, those being the Uber version, non-Uber version, and the bossing version. Hope you guys enjoyed this build guide. Let me know if you have any questions or improvements on the build in the comments below. I have a bunch more guides coming, so leave this video a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on those. That's all for today. Remember to have fun and take care.